Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this NIACRO's AGM. I'm just going to take a few moments before I hand over the formal proceedings to our Chair, Sid, to make a few remarks. While those that we see on screen are acting as our presenters today, we obviously are also supported by a number of people who aren't members of the organisation, staff and funders who are able to witness the event, but who are not participating in this part of the AGM itself. I wanted to make just three remarks before I hand over to Sid. The first of that is I wanted to celebrate the fact that this is Trustees Week, and I was this morning involved in an event with business in the community and NICFA, extolling the virtues of our board and all of the support we get in NIACRO. So I wanted to make sure that people here at this meeting understood what a value our executive committee is to the organisation. In planning for this AGM, the planning started some time before the most recent restrictions, and at that stage we were going to showcase some elements of the organisation's work and invite some of our programme participants to engage with us. Unfortunately, the restrictions meant that we had to do something much more swiftly just before lockdown. And so I apologise for the fact that Peter and Joseph, who will join us to talk about their time on our programmes, are not visible on the screen, but phoned in that day from various different parts of Northern Ireland, and we didn't encourage them to make the travel journeys. So that's why you don't see them on the screen. Finally, just in case it doesn't come through in the presentation, I want to extend our thanks to all of those who have funded and supported us throughout the year. I'll return to make further remarks later on in this session, but I'm handing over now to Sid. Thank you, Chair.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 49th Annual General Meeting. I know that if I say that our welcome extends to all those with whom we partner during the year, in some capacity or other, it will embrace almost everybody from the public and private sector and a wide variety of community, voluntary and social enterprise organisations with whom we work during the year. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for working with us during the year and for showing your support and interest in being with us at our annual general meeting today. I noticed this morning that Brian Peelan, the editor of View Digital magazine, had been tweeting from quite early this morning about our annual general meeting. And for a moment or two, I felt somewhat guilty that I was reading his tweets while still lying in bed. And I only got some consolation when I realized that Brian was also tweeting from bed and taking things rather easy. Anyway, it's good to have Brian from View Digital with us. We have a special relationship with View Digital and with Brian and with Una Murphy, who shine a light into some dark places in the social policy field through View Digital magazine. It was lovely to see my former partner, Brendan Fulton, who was Vice Chair until last year, back with us and joining in today's meeting. Although he retired as Vice Chairman, I think last year, he obviously left early because he got released early on the grounds of good behaviour. But I know that we still make considerable use of Brian's experience, advice and wise counsel, and it's really good to see him and a number of other supporters of our organisation today. Now, the main substance of the afternoon's annual general meeting, as Alwyn has described, will be the presentation of the annual report. But before proceeding with the business which will take us to that annual report, I would like to record right at the very outset the deep appreciation of myself and my colleagues on the Executive Committee to all the staff of NIACRO for the way they have responded to the challenges of a very difficult and a very turbulent year. It's important to make those comments, not only because we feel them passionately, but also because we know that some staff are observing today's meeting and they might as well hear it from the horse's mouth. Our staff have responded magnificently, and to all of you throughout the organisation, we record our thanks. Now, I know that those I'm thanking will be the first to acknowledge that what has been achieved has required and has received the full cooperation of all those with whom we work during the year. But the point is that our staff in the NIACRO are our most important resource, and you deserve our heartfelt appreciation. So thank you. I would wish to conclude these initial remarks by thanking the members of the Executive Committee, serving as trustees in a purely voluntary capacity. And I'd also want to thank our senior leadership team. To the Executive Committee and the senior leadership team, I express my thanks for the help and support that you've extended to myself as chair throughout the past year. From my point of view, you're a class act, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you and be supported by you over the past 12 months. Thank you very much indeed. I'd now like to move to the agenda proper, and having expressed those marks of welcome, we move then to agenda item 2, apologies. As you'd expect, there's a fairly extensive list of apologies, so could I just ask that we agree to take those as read? Is that agreed? Okay, I'll take that silence as assent, but since you're all muted, I can assume that you've agreed, unless you're unmuted. So that's item 2 on apologies. Item 3 is concerned with the minutes of last year's, our 48th annual general meeting. Now, in accordance with the usual practice in this regard, the minutes of last year's annual general meeting were tabled at a meeting of the Executive Committee, who agreed that those minutes were accurate, and a copy of the minutes has been circulated with the papers for today's meeting. Maybe therefore we'll take the minutes of the 40th meeting of the AGM as agreed. Thank you. And moving then on swiftly to the presentation of the annual report. Instead of hosting a guest speaker this year, because that clearly wasn't practical, we're going to have a more detailed than usual look at the NIACRO annual report for 2019-2020. If I were to use a rather hackneyed marketing phrase, NIACRO is an organization which does exactly what it says on the tin, and the annual report, which is going to be spoken to by Owen, is a reflection from that. So Owen will be speaking to it along with several members of our senior leadership team and staff and some service users. What will happen now is we're going to switch to a pre-recorded video. And during the video, you will be able to use the chat facility to ask questions. And at the end of the presentation of the annual report, Owen will take the opportunity to answer any questions that may have been tabled. So along the bottom of your screen, you'll see an icon labeled chat. I'm basing on what the script has been written for me here. So hopefully you can see that chat. When you click on that, you'll see an area to the right of your screen where you can type your question. Now, we're in virgin territory here, so I hope that works well. And it's at this stage now, I hand over to Owen and staff. Over to you, Owen.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this report to you today. And can I thank all of you who've been able to join us today for this AGM, which is being held in rather a changed format from our usual style. Indeed, the traditional NIACRO AGM seeks to move through the business fairly swiftly to arrive at a guest speaker, whereas today we're going to take this golden time with you to focus exclusively on the work that we've been doing in the year. In presenting the annual report, we're clearly flagging up to you that next year, 2021, will be our 50th year of delivering services across Northern Ireland. 2019 to 20, the year under review, saw us achieving targets and delivering agreed outcomes across the full range of all of our programmes. We've also worked to add value to the policy and research agenda on a range of issues. Through the work we've undertaken into employers' attitudes to employing those with a criminal conviction, and a study of the reasons why women are still making their way into prison for reasons of fine default in the year 2020. Every year has key milestones, and this year was no exception. The news in the summer of 2019 that we had secured the NIPS contract to deliver services to those visiting prison now provides us with the opportunity for excellent connection between this service and the remodelled Family Link services, and was truly a high tide moment. The publication of the Sagini inspection report into the operation of our Base 2 project provided staff and our executive committee with welcome reassurance of the value and integrity of our longest running service in NIACRO. In saying that, we wholeheartedly concur with the remarks of the Chief Inspector when she said, in a normalised society, we shouldn't need Base 2, but the reality is we do. In terms of working as we ever are to fill gaps, we were delighted in the year to secure funding from probation to trial a mentoring services for men and women over 30 who are outside the current remit of the Aspire programme. And very pleasingly, in the summer of 2019, we achieved the gold standard from IIP, a step up from the previous silver standard, recognising the investment made in our staff, which in turn provides the investment that they make in applying their skills and expertise in engaging our service users. The report records many achievements, and I'll leave you to read those at your leisure, but also recognises the support that the organisation achieves from its funders, supporters, members, staff and volunteers. The Executive Committee and the senior leadership team are grateful for the trust and support we receive from all those folks. Turning to our programmes of work, in the area of children and families, we continue to model and provide a range of early age intervention services supported by the Public Health Agency, the Health and Social Care Board and numerous trusts, enabling us to show what can be achieved by early intervention, given all that we in justice know and can evidence when folk fall through the nets of support and progress towards the formal justice system, with associated costs for victims, those who've offended and the community more broadly. Moving to work to support families affected by imprisonment, we've worked to remodel the Family Links service with an enhanced focus on children, providing a programme of activity and supports that engage prison staff, the young people themselves, and in fact in the year has indeed engaged the Director General himself on at least 2 occasions. The FAM project provides debt and money management advice supported by the Department of Communities and reaches into many of our programmes to provide that specialist support. And we are only too well aware that debt and the associated indebtedness created by that have a pernicious impact on family life choices. Just focus for a moment on the number of individuals we've been able to support across 21 projects in the year. And you'll see from that in fact, in many of our adult services, we actually provide a lot of shorter term interventions such as Base 2, such as advice and help which may last for a shorter period, whereas actually in our children's services our engagement with them is over a much longer period and obviously is important in terms of the trajectory we're trying to stop in terms of negative outcomes for those kids. In a few moments, we're going to hear from staff and service users about their experiences of the service delivery. Firstly, we'll hear from a panel of staff drawn from a range of service, demonstrating the combined contributions they can make to our shared mission. Then we'll hear from a service user from our employability programme, Working Well. And it's important that we recognise the backdrop to this work is the findings from a recent survey we undertook with employers. We'll hear in a little while how many employers do ask questions about criminal records. It matters to some. And here we find that actually quite hopeful findings from employers, that 97% of employers believe rehabilitation of people is possible, while some have concerns about the convictions they might turn up at their door with. Most employers actually say that a proof of rehabilitation would make them more likely to engage somebody with such a background. So it's a hopeful message and means that there is really an opportunity from the supply side of the labour market to move forward in this way. In all we do, we strive to work constructively and collaboratively with other organisations. We have a range of formal partnerships with statutory and community organisations. We have developed and lead the Accessing Services for Offender grouping that brings together a range of helping services. Through the Get Real programme that you'll hear about, we've engaged with local communities, and in the Base 2 inspection confirms the valuable links that we have with over 60 supportive organisations. In the Working Well programme, our communities of support include training organisations, further education colleges, employers and industry training boards. In all that we're doing, we are working to realise opportunities and engagements for our service users. And to do all this work, we need support, the resources, the funding to employ staff who in turn have the skills and dedication to help engage and motivate those who join programmes to stabilise their personal environments and to work towards making more informed life choices. Staff and volunteers are the resource this organisation deploys to achieve its mission, and I want to say thank you to all of them for the challenges they rise to every day. I also personally want to say a big thank you to the Executive Committee, who provide the strategic direction and support and exercise all necessary scrutiny and stewardship, and particularly also to my SLT colleagues who share the leadership of this proud and mission-driven organisation. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Ruth Walker, the Business Development Manager here at NIACRO, and we're joined today by some of the senior practitioners from a number of NIACRO projects to explore together some of the ways in which the folks that we support are helped and supported to achieve positive change. So joining me today is Paul Fleming from APEC, Assisting People and Communities, Geraldine McGuigan from Family Links, Mark Johnson from Get Real, and Johnny Pardo from Working Well. So our first question is to Paul from APEC. Paul, your project supports people whose lifestyles are chaotic and that may put them at risk of losing their tenancies. Can you tell us a little bit about how your support makes a difference to the individual and to the wider community?
Okay, thanks Ruth, and thanks fellow panel members. Apologies I can't be with you physically here today. In relation to the question, I suppose ensuring an individual can sustain accommodation is the single biggest factor in reducing homelessness and crucially repeat homelessness. It can provide that anchor for a previously chaotic life and I suppose act as a springboard for other crucial steps that need to take place, such as repairing relationships, accessing financial support and accessing healthcare. When we actually first get a referral, it's usual that the neighbours or the community have complained about that individual and about their behaviour, their antisocial behaviour. It can be very serious things such as drug dealing. It could be a lot of partying, allegations even of things like very serious matters like prostitution, a whole range of difficulties through to, I suppose, more minor things like not keeping the property well, an untidy garden. So given that range of the type of complaints, we need to get the story from them and understand what went wrong and more importantly what's been going wrong in their lives, and we put supports around them. We take steps alongside them and it works. Over 95% sustain their accommodation and don't lose their homes. Even more importantly, other things stabilise for them. We've got brilliant examples for working with individuals who go on even further, getting involved in things like volunteering, community champions, even mentors with other services. There's also that tangible benefit for communities. Instilling community safety shouldn't be underestimated. A lot of communities just want to feel safe, and an individual ending up in the homelessness or the criminal justice systems just ensures that they're further away from stabilisation. And they end up sometimes in other communities with less support and less of an understanding of what managing their tenancy should look like. Communities, we find, actually want to see people being helped, and victims want to be heard too. Simply moving on that problem is not listening to their needs. If we can sit alongside those communities, listen to their concerns about an individual, and sometimes even about what is going on more widely in the community, and address these directly, they feel validated and listened to. They also have that opportunity to see that a person who may have caused problems actually want to remain and make a home in that community. APEC, it's about sustaining an individual in their home, not a house. It's about having that sense of belonging, a sense of contribution, a sense of growth and fulfilling aspirations. I guess that's what we try to do every time we get a referral for a client. I hope that goes some way to, I suppose, understand the impact of APEC's work.
Thank you, Paul. So Geraldine, can you tell us a little bit about how you see the difference Family Links makes in the life of a person in prison?
Will do, Ruth. So Ruth, Lord Farmer said in his report, good family relationships must be a golden thread running through all prison processes. Relationships are fundamentally important if people are to change. So in Family Links, we support the family to keep connecting to the person in prison. And when we do this, this helps the person in prison cope with imprisonment. It helps them on returning into their community, and it also helps reduce the risk of reoffending. In Family Links, we're supporting families to deal with any benefit or any debt issues. We support them with emotional stress they might be feeling. We listen to the children and support the children through any worries or stresses they have on parental imprisonment. And when we do this, this helps reduce stress for the person in prison, knowing that their loved ones out in the community are receiving support. In addition to this, we would also liaise with staff, family officers and PDU coordinators in the prison. And by doing this, we can raise the family's concerns and help shape the individual support needs. In addition to this, we would engage in safer custody forums. And when we do this, it helps the families and the children have a voice. It helps us raise with the prison dynamics and circumstances that might be impacting on the person in prison, but also allows us to support the family and the loved ones out in the community.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Okay.
So, Mark, turning to Get Real, which is a programme that helps to tackle hate crime. Can you give us some indication of your observations of the difference that a restorative process can make in changing the attitudes of someone who's been involved in a crime or incident where hate or prejudice has been a motivating factor?
Yeah, there's a lot of hate crime offences happen, and there's not a lot of thought goes in behind them, if you like. It's kind of a reaction from one culture to another, or one group of people towards another minority group of people. And the difference within the restorative approach that we take, if you were to take an assault as an example, if yourself and Geraldine were assaulted, the law would look at 2 assault charges, whereas what we do through the restorative process is look at how, as Ruth, you were impacted, and as Geraldine, how you were impacted. So we look, or help the people who have offended to look at how their actions actually impacts on the individual. So not just the way that they've broken the law, but the harm that's been caused. So how the person has been harmed physically, emotionally, and the ripple effect of that as well. So how the person who's actually offended gets harmed in the process too, and how people around them can be impacted and affected, and with the victim, how they're impacted and people around them are affected. And then it's a process where the person who's caused the offence or caused the harm gets the opportunity to communicate with the person who they've harmed. So that can take the form of indirect communication, or, which is a very powerful process, direct communication in a controlled meeting. And again there, rather than with the legal system where a solicitor would speak for somebody, there they will get to actually communicate and talk themselves and hear about how their actions have impacted somebody. And then between the 2 parties, we can look at how somebody who has caused harm could actually make up to repair that harm and make up for the harm. So for me, there's that personal approach that comes within it, and there's a personal responsibility that happens within it. And what we have seen from that, and through Get Real, we've worked with a number of participants in this way, that they have quite lengthy criminal records, some of them. But it's the first time they've actually been involved in a process like this, where they can hear the impact directly of their actions. And that has a big impact on the person who's offended.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Turning to Johnny, who works on our Working Well Employability Support Programme. Johnny, how much of a barrier, in your experience, is having a conviction when it comes to helping to support someone move into stable employment?
Thanks, Ruth. Yes, I mean, being a person with a conviction leaves you incredibly vulnerable at the moment, because unlike other characteristics like gender or race or religion, somebody can turn around and just say, I don't want to employ you just because you have a conviction. It doesn't matter whether the conviction is relevant to so for example, a driving job, an office-based job and a driving conviction, the person can legally turn around and say, no, they don't want you. The other thing that happens is that because recruitment isn't regulated very well, people can be asked at any point in the recruitment process, and I run the helpline in NIACRO, and even yesterday I got a phone call from a guy who was asked on a phone call, tell me your criminal record. So people are just kind of landed with it, so they don't know when it's going to come up. People often don't know when their convictions are spent, and they'll often over-declare and maybe tell people too soon, and be discriminated against. So it's a massive barrier. And we would love to see some sort of protection in some way for people, and some sort of a moving forward of the legislation, so that people wouldn't have to live with some things forever. Yes, of course, you have regulated activity where people need to be protected, and there's enhanced access and eye checks, but there's certainly old minor youth convictions that certainly could be taken away from people having to disclose. So it is a massive barrier. We did a survey with Ulster University at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and 80% of employers in Northern Ireland will ask on the application form, do you have a criminal record? And a lot of those are just binned. So it's a huge problem, but through NIACRO support services, we help a lot of people each year overcome those barriers.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay, well, that's all from our panel today. I hope you've found those questions and answer session help you fill in a little bit more information about how we here at NIACRO are making a difference every day.
Hello everyone, my name's Rachel and I am Programme Manager in NIACRO for our Working Well Employability Programme. Our programme is funded by the European Social Fund and also our partners who are the Probation Board for Northern Ireland and the Prison Service in Northern Ireland. We have just completed year 2 of our programme delivery and I'm really pleased to say that we have exceeded our targets for new enrolments onto the programme, but also supporting people into employment and education and training as well. I am pleased to welcome here today Lindsay O'Neill, who is an employment officer on our Working Well programme, and also Peter, who's joining us on the line. And Peter's a recent participant who has been on the programme with us. So Lindsay and Peter, thank you both for being with us here today. And Lindsay, I'm going to turn to you first and ask you some questions about how you supported Peter on the programme.
Okay, so Peter was referred through to myself in May this year by his probation worker just to get some support and help around looking for employment. So initially I had phoned Peter because due to COVID we haven't been meeting people, so it's been done through the phone. So I introduced myself, I introduced what NIACRO is about and what we do, and then following that we done an initial assessment and an action plan. That was able to identify what Peter's goals were, what he wanted to achieve, but it also looked at what barriers there were and how then we would overcome these barriers. So Peter actually has a trade behind him, however he wanted to go down a different route of employment, so we looked at that and Peter thought it would be good if he got a job on a construction site. So because we have a partnership with CITB, we were able to fund Peter to do his CSR training. So quite quickly after Peter done this, he got a job part-time on a building site. Unfortunately, the building site had to close down. However, that's not where Peter's story ended, so I'm going to maybe pass it over to Peter to tell you about what's going on now.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. So, Peter, I would be interested to hear then how things picked up from then with you. So over to you, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to obviously get the support to get onto the building site, but unfortunately, we're kind of in a situation with COVID that people don't know where the recession and what's going to happen with building work. And so I found out pretty quickly, you know, I'll do 3 days here and then 2 days there. It just really wasn't a consistent job for us. So I just pursued other avenues. I just kept on sending in CVs, you know, chasing up employment and found myself a warehouse job. Now, for me, work is work. It doesn't matter whether you've got a trade or not. Keeping in employment's important. It keeps yourself motivated, puts you on the right track.
Absolutely, yeah. And Peter, can I ask you to tell us maybe how the Working Well programme and how Lindsay supported you and why the programme is important?
Well, Lindsay she was very supportive. She was constantly on the phone checking up, you know, she doing interviews and finding out what support I needed. Anything I asked for, basically, she would look into and see whether she could facilitate that for us. You know, a CRS card would have cost me hundreds and hundreds of pounds. I wouldn't have been able to afford that just coming out of prison. Yeah. You know, it was something that they were able to provide for us. And very quickly as well. I think within a week I was doing the course. It was just, you know, it was nice to have someone there. You know, she followed through with the CVs and the, she's doing, what would you call that, Lindsay? That statement.
Oh, the disclosure statement.
Yeah. Disclose the statement for us as well. So, you know, she does, you know, she follows through and, you know, for me, it was just a means of getting the work done, put it down on paper and sent off.
Great. And for you, Peter, that did lead to employment. Do you maybe want to tell us about how things have progressed then for you since coming onto the programme?
Well, obviously, I was working part-time on a building site for 3 or 4 weeks. I worked there, and then I've taken the last 3 weeks off simply because I've been offered the opportunity to work in this warehouse. I have an induction starting at the end of the month, on the 28th of this month, and I start full-time nights from the 2nd of November. So, you know, for me, it's just progressed. I've got to the stage now where I'm just thinking, I've got a couple of weeks off. I'm just going to enjoy myself, just get myself ready for work on a full-time basis again.
Fantastic. And Peter, why is working full-time important for you?
I've worked all my life. You know, I made one bad decision and ended up in prison. You know, before then, I was constantly in work. For me, it's important to work. You don't get anything sitting on your ass claiming benefits, unfortunately. I know benefit systems are there to help, but I'm able-bodied and I'm willing to work. I've got an excellent work history, so it's important for me to be able to prove that, whether it starts off at the bottom and work me way up through the company. It's just getting that opportunity to start in the company in the first place that's important to anyone's self-esteem and motivation.
Absolutely. Okay. Peter, thank you. Peter, I'm going to hand back to Lindsay, and Lindsay, maybe ask you if you could tell us about some of the barriers, and Peter has talked about some of those that you maybe find that participants who are on the programme face.
So some of the people that I would work with find it really difficult to talk about their conviction or how to disclose their conviction. It also can be quite difficult to know when to disclose, how to disclose it, and to do it in a safe way, in a fair way. So I would help people overcome them barriers. I would also help people to look for jobs, and realistic jobs, and jobs that will suit them. Some people I work with as well find other barriers to employment. So they may have mental health issues, they may have addiction issues, or they may have difficulties within their community or family. So it's important I'm able to help them overcome them barriers, to help them progress into stable employment. Okay,
great, Lindsay. Thank you. Thank you, Peter, as well, for sharing with us your experience of the programme, and Lindsay, the snapshot of the work that you do to support people with convictions to find employment. And Peter, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you all the best in your new role in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Hello, my name's Gareth Iannetta, and I'm the Programmes Manager for Adult Services with NIACRO. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Aspire programme, which has been running now since 2017. And it works in partnership with the Probation Board for Northern Ireland, and it's a Northern Ireland-wide programme supporting over 500 young men per year. And there are two elements to the programme. There's a mentoring service, which works with young men who are on post-custody supervision or on probation orders. And there is a community engagement element, working with young men who aren't currently subject to any licensing or any supervision requirements. But similarly, both programmes are supporting young men to gain access to services and providing practical supports, helping them with mainly accommodation and accessing healthcare and addiction services, as well as mentoring support to work and to build relationships, with families and within communities. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Joseph, who's a service user in the Aspire Community Engagement Programme. And Joseph has been working with his mentor now, and is going to tell us a little bit about the support that he has received. So Joseph, can you tell us a bit around, the work you've done so far and how it's been helpful to you?
Yeah, 100%. Sure, well, for a start, whenever I started working with my Aspire worker, I linked in the community addictions, mental health services. I was supported. She supported me with social services to see my daughter when I lost my flat in 2000. Was it June? I lost my flat in June, and due to that, Naomi worked with the housing to get me points, and I now have another flat. She applied for my discretionary support grant, and I could decorate my flat. We received it. She helped me get my starter pack, and she went out of her way one day and got me my paint, as she wasn't allowed. With the COVID restrictions, she wasn't allowed near me, so she had left everything at my front door. She's done everything for me. And then a few positivities about working with Naomi. She was always on the other end of the phone. She never judged me the way everyone else was judging me. Always helped me in every crisis that I had. I found it easier to talk to her than I've ever done with anyone. She always reminds me how far I've come and how I made sure I stayed out of jail. She phoned me every single week to engage with me to see if I'd been in trouble within that week or get in trouble over that weekend. She gave me a bit of a boost in life. And another few things, since working with Naomi, I love that I have a new flat and that I am settling in well in my new area. I have worked so well with social services that I am starting to get in direct contact with my daughter. In fact, she was doing a family tree the other day, and I'm not too sure if it was in school or with the family, and I was on the tree. I was added into the tree, and the other day the social rung me and says that they've been adding bits and bobs into the tree, and now they're going to start in direct contact because she's starting to ask about me. My life in general is far more stable. I've been out of jail 41 weeks there yesterday. I have started a restorative justice course with Kiva from CRUNI, I think it's called. And she says if I knuckle down, get what I need to do, I'll have my OCN and course finished by Christmas.
Joseph, thanks so much. Really good to hear how the support has been positive for you. You've certainly made huge strides there over the time that you've worked with the programme, and that's been fantastic, and I'm glad we could be of support.
And sir, another thing, like, see, there years ago, I was very, very addicted to legal highs. So I was, and I didn't want to work with anyone because they were judging me and all. I got off the drugs whenever I got out of jail because I was more heavy on the drink. And between Naomi and my child social worker, the only two that has never judged me for my past, because they know my future is going further than what it was. She's such an inspiration, she was like.
Excellent. Well, Joseph, thanks for sharing that with us. Thank you.
Yeah. Finally, I provide a brief report on our work through COVID, given the potential it had to impact on our organisation's sustainability. In March, like everyone, we found ourselves in a rapidly developing public health crisis, requiring us to follow the guidance from PHA, local legislators and our funders and partners. As the situation unfolded, we followed the science and ceased face-to-face working and limited access to our buildings. In anticipation of the mandatory lockdown, we equipped our staff to work remotely. When lockdown came into effect on the 23rd of March, a new way of working took hold. It was important for us to step out in line with our funders and partners as we responded to the new situation and were able to offer support to our service users through these challenging times. It was particularly crucial with the closure of in-person visits for families and friends, as well as to provide supports to those who were subject to the Prison Service's early release scheme. We worked closely with the Prison Service to prepare information and referral pathways for those affected. We transformed our previous transportation-free phone line into a new dedicated helpline and recruited a rota of volunteers to person the helpline 5 days a week from our Belfast office. We were recognised as one of a number of partners working between Social Security Agency and the Prison Service in a trusted partner relationship to resolve issues that our service users were experiencing. Other services were called upon to make similar adaptations, probably most notably our Base 2 service, which has seen a 40% increase in referrals in the 6-month period since the beginning of this year. We also worked virtually in the area of children and families in our early intervention services and worked remotely through adult services. But that, of course, starts to bring us into the year 2021, so I'll leave further consideration of those developments for next year's AGM. Remember, it's our 50th. But on reflection, the pandemic has tested our resiliency and adaptability, strength that many of you will know have been forged through almost 50 years as an organisation. I want to close by saying that we remain very grateful for the early indications of ongoing financial support from our key funders, whose support is always central to all that we are able to deliver. Thank you very much.
Owen, thank you. Just looking at the chat, there aren't questions as such, but there are some comments, and you might like to reflect on some of those possibly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the comments are as overwhelming as the contributions from Peter and Joseph, which bring to life, I suppose, what it is we do in NIACRO every day. And it's great to see that those who are joined us today have appreciated the fact that we've run a very different type of AGM today, and it's provided the people with the opportunity to witness some of the work. And clearly in witnessing some of the work, you also understand the work of some of the staff, not some of the staff, all of the staff, because while 2 or 3 were involved today, that's what over 120 staff are doing when we're able to, all of the time. So yeah, I wouldn't want, unless there's a particular question that somebody wants to ask, I don't think I can say it anything more eloquently than our 2 participants have already said.
Absolutely agree, Owen. The comments which are coming in on the chat are really very, very encouraging indeed. And it underscores the relevance of the format which has been used today to highlight some of our activities. I have to say, from a personal point of view, listening to our 2 service users, talking about Lindsay and Naomi, and that very special relationship which clearly exists there. It's been quite the most encouraging contribution that has been made to any of the annual general meetings that I've been able to attend over the past few years. And it's really congratulations to all involved in the presentation of that session. Our thanks to you, Owen, all the members of staff, and in particular to our 2 service users for their contribution to today's meeting. Owen.
Yeah, can I just say, I think we're having some difficulty, control room, with people getting their cameras back on and being able to see. So maybe we could just deal with that, and we will in a moment go back after we've had the presentation of the accounts to the special resolution.
That is the intention, Owen, yes. And those who are trying to put their cameras on, if they go to the, I think it's the top right-hand corner of there may be 3 dots, and if you click on those, it may provide the opportunity to start video.
Yeah. I see that Brian has asked us a question here around our experience and our concerns around what's been happening to people in prison during COVID, and have we any concerns around the situation at the moment. I mean, the truth is we get very little comment out from prisons at this stage. The key area that we would have had comment from would have been in the visitor centres, and our visitor centres are closed, and staff there would have picked up on issues. Similarly, we would have picked things up from those who were visiting on a regular basis. So I would say that our intelligence in that area is less than it has been. Though that said, Fiona and myself met with our prisoner ombudsperson in the last couple of weeks, and we were discussing what were concerns that had come through to us. And maybe, Brian, if you're interested, we could have a further conversation about that at another point.
Thank you, Owen. Any other questions that, Owen, you want to address?
No, there's no other questions that have come through here, so I think I'm happy to close.
Okay, well, thank you very much again to everyone who's participated. We're required to formally adopt the annual report. So can I call upon Magella McCloskey, the NIACRO's Executive Vice Chair, to propose adoption of the annual report?
Yes, Sid, I'd be delighted to propose such an excellent annual report for adoption at the annual general meeting.
Thank you, Magella. And we move to a seconder. I think, Christine, you might be happy to second.
Yes, I am indeed. And I think, as people are saying in the chat, those stories and the presentations by staff certainly give the report a lot of life in terms of showing us the care and commitment that NIACRO displays in all their work with people who are in vulnerable and distressing situations. So I definitely would like to second the report.
Thank you very much indeed, Magella and Christine. So adoption of the annual report has been proposed and seconded. Are members prepared to agree to the adoption of the annual report?
Yes.
Yeah. Any dissent? None. Then I formally declare the annual report as having been adopted. And then, just because I was checking whether you were paying attention or not, I managed to omit item 4 on the agenda, which is a fairly important part of the business we have to conduct. That is a special resolution. So if I may take you back to item 4 on the agenda, our current circumstances, which everybody understands, initially required us to make an amendment to our Articles of Association so that we could have online attendees at this year's AGM. Whilst that requirement is no longer the case, we have received advice from the Charity Commission. It is appropriate that we adopt this proposed resolution today to ensure that we can apply digital technology to organisational meetings in the future as a method of connection and doing business. So this proposed resolution makes provision for NIACRO to hold its meeting digitally in the future. And that facility to meet remotely, it's suggested, will be beneficial even after the end of the pandemic, because we'll be clearly, in the light of our experience of the pandemic and the changes it has brought about, we'll be reviewing and trying to adopt rather more modern and practical working practices. And the amendment that has been circulated to members in the papers for today's meeting was made with legal guidance from our solicitors. So in line with the required process, the amendment is proposed by myself. It has been seconded by the organisation's Honourable Treasurer, Tony Glover, and it's now up to me to seek consent from the members attending today's meeting to agree to adopt this proposed amendment. Is the amendment agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Any dissent? Then I can declare for the purpose of the meeting that the amendment has been adopted by today's meeting. And if I got my self back into the right sequence on the agenda, we would then go to the presentation of the annual accounts, and I would there call upon Tony Glover, our Treasurer, to speak to the annual accounts. Tony.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. I can see a few of you, but not all of you, and I take it that you can see me, so hopefully,
yes.
Yes, okay, there's a positive response. So guys, my role today is to propose to our members the adoption of NIACRO's audited financial statements for the year ended 31st of March 2020. But before I make that proposal, I would like to highlight just a few of the main points in the accounts. Hopefully you will have all received a copy of our financial statements, and I assume you'll have read them cover to cover. So the first point that I would like to make is that our independent external auditors have given us a clean bill of health this year. That's not exactly a technical term, but I think it does convey the flavour of our audit report. And if you want to go through that in any more detail, you will find the audit report on pages 9 and 10 of the financial statements. There's a brief summary of the results for the year in the Director's report on page 8, and a much more detailed report of those results you'll find on pages 11 to 14. The headline figures that I'd like to highlight for you for the year are that the incoming resources increased by 482,000, which brought that to a total of just under £4.25 million, while the resources that were expended in the year increased by £573,000 to a total of just over £4.27 million. The net result, therefore, for the year is a deficit of £26,000. Now, the deficit is entirely accounted for by a loss on the visitor centres contract that commenced during the year and that loss is a direct result of the voluntary severance scheme that NIACRO had to implement on taking over responsibility for the staff employed under those contracts. That loss amounted to £51,000, and fortunately, careful management of administrative resources enabled the loss to be mitigated down to the reported deficit of £26,000. The state of the financial affairs of NIACRO on the 31st of March 2020 is set out on page 16 of the financial statements in the form of our balance sheet. So I'm pleased on behalf of the Executive Committee to be able to report to our members that NIACRO's financial well-being continues to reflect a healthy position, and with the project's accumulated fund standing at that date at £2.18 million. If you want any more detail on how that fund is made up, you'll see that at note 19 to the accounts. There is one item I would like to draw your attention to, and it is a fairly significant change in the use of our financial resources, which has evolved over the last number of years and which is quite starkly reflected in this year's balance sheet. I am referring to the increasing demand on NIACRO's cash resources. Our balance sheet shows that at the 31st of March last, we were owed over £1 million in outstanding claims. And what that means in effect is that NIACRO had paid project costs of that amount from its own resources. And that represents an increase of £522,000 on last year. But looking back over a period of 5 years, the increase amounts to £800,000. So this is therefore a very substantial shift in our cash flow management, and it's one that demands very careful financial control. It also will have an impact on NIACRO's ability to grow and develop further in the future. So it is a matter that we need to keep a close eye on. On the issue of financial management, on behalf of the Executive Committee, I would like at this time to express our gratitude to Maggie Butler and her team in the Finance Department for the sterling work that they have performed throughout a very difficult year. So that completes my review of our financial statements. And before I hand back to the Chair, I would like to propose to the meeting the adoption of our audited financial statements.
Thank you very much indeed, Tony, for that. And you finished by proposing adoption of the annual accounts. Is there someone who would be prepared to second the adoption of the annual accounts?
Sid, can I propose or second that proposal for the adoption of the annual accounts?
Thanks very much indeed, Magella. Before putting that proposal to the meeting, I think it would be appropriate to record our appreciation to Tony for his oversight of the financial affairs of the organisation over the past 12 months. It will be evidenced by Tony's remarks that it has been a far from normal year in many respects, and therefore his attention to detail and his oversight of our financial affairs is very much appreciated, and he has appropriately paid tribute to Maggie Butler and her staff, with whom Tony has to engage very closely during the course of the year. So the adoption of the annual accounts has been proposed by Tony and seconded by our Vice Chair, Magella. May I put that proposal to the meeting? Are members prepared to agree to the adoption of the annual accounts?
Agreed. Yes.
Any disagreement? If not, then I can formally declare that the annual accounts have been adopted, and move to item 7 on the agenda, which is the announcement of the members of the Executive Committee for the 2020-2021 year. And I'm told that valid nominations have been received for the re-election of 2 members of the Executive Committee, namely myself as chair and Gillian McNaull. I'm also informed that one other nomination to the Executive Committee has been received in respect of John Patrick Clayton. And John, I think you're with us today. I think I caught you at some stage. So that in addition to those three, Sid McDowell, Gillian McNaull and John Patrick Clayton, those people stand elected to the Executive Committee. And so the Executive Committee will be constituted of those three, plus Christine Hunter, Conor Murray, Magella McCloskey, Paul Farrell, Karen Collins, Frank Mulhern, and Tony Glover. The nomination of John Patrick Clayton is a reflection of the fact that we try on the Executive Committee from time to time to refresh the membership of the committee with new members who will bring their own particular expertise and skills to our deliberations. And so John Patrick Clayton is one of such people. We welcome him to the Executive Committee and look forward to his contribution. The 10 people who have been now constitute the Executive Committee, the rules of the association say that unless otherwise determined by the charity in a general meeting, the number of elected members of the Executive Committee shall be a minimum of 5 and up to a maximum of 12. So the names I have announced amount to 10, and therefore we're in compliance with the Constitution, and those 10 persons will constitute the Executive Committee for the forthcoming year. Move then to item 7 on the agenda, the appointment of auditors. And again, I call upon Tony Glover, our Treasurer, to speak to that item. Tony.
Good, Chair. One of the key elements of a statutory audit of any organisation is the physical inspection of financial records and engaging face-to-face with the client's staff and officers. And previously, these routine tasks would have been taken for granted. But as we all know, this year, a lot of things have changed. Routine daily tasks have become very difficult. And we are very grateful to our auditors that not only were they able to complete our audit this year, but they did so in a very timely and efficient manner. So I just want to express our thanks to Ms. Campbell and company for undertaking the work in such difficult circumstances. In the interest of good governance, we are obliged to review the appointment of our auditors on a regular basis and to seek tenders for that role. So this process therefore informs our decision as to the suitable candidates for appointment to the role of auditors. And this year, on behalf of the Executive Committee, I would propose that we reappoint Messrs. Ms. Campbell and Co. to the post of auditors.
Thank you very much indeed, Tony. May I call for a seconder for that proposal from Tony? I understand, Frank, you might.
I'll second that proposal.
Sorry, Frank, I didn't pick that up.
Oh, sorry, I'm not. I second that proposal. Can you hear me?
Great, thanks indeed, Frank. So we have a proposal to reappoint as auditors Messrs. McCampbell and Sons. It's been proposed and seconded. Are members of the association content to agree that proposal?
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only proposal that Bill Ms. Campbell hasn't given me a thumbs up for. Bill, what happened there? It's good to see you at today's meeting, Bill, and your support for ongoing support for the work of NIACRO. That concludes item 7 on the agenda. Takes me to item 8 on the agenda, which is any other business. Is there any other business for the annual general meeting? If there's none, it only remains for me to thank those who have been responsible for making the arrangements for today's meetings. It's our first run through of this kind of thing. It hasn't been seamless, but it's been close to it, and it's been very good. Thank you to all who have been involved in the preparation for today's meeting. That concludes the annual general meeting. Thank you all very much indeed.